Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a question that sounds pretty simple, but is actually, when you think about it, kind of terrifying. How much of your life can change in just a fraction of a second?
It's the kind of thing we actively try not to think about, isn't it? It's too uncomfortable.
Right. But for the author we're covering today, that question isn't some late-night hypothetical. It is the defining moment of his entire life. We are diving deep into Atomic Habits by James Clear. And look, I know what you might be thinking.
Oh, great. Another productivity book.
Exactly. Are we going to talk about color-coded calendars and to-do lists?
And the answer is a hard no. This isn't really a book about productivity, I'd argue. It's more like an operating manual for the human brain. But before we get to the hacks, and trust me, there are some incredible ones, we have to talk about the day James Clear's life basically ended.
Or at least the life he thought he was going to have.
Yes, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, we really need to set the stakes here. This isn't some guru writing from an ivory tower. He learned all of this stuff from the absolute trenches. So let's go back. It's the final day of his sophomore year of high school.
Picture it. Sun is out. He's playing baseball. It sounds like the start of a cheesy teen movie.
It really does. So he's out on the field, glove on his hand. A classmate of his is at the plate, takes a full, powerful swing, and then something just goes horribly wrong.
The bat slips. It just flies out of the batter's hands, spinning through the air like a helicopter blade, like something out of a cartoon.
Except it wasn't a cartoon.
No. And it strikes Clear directly between the eyes.
I've read this account a few times now, and I still physically wince when I think about it.
He says he has no memory of the impact itself.
None at all. The velocity was so high that the bat literally crushed his nose into this distorted U-shape. But the external damage, as horrific as it was just the beginning.
That's the scary part. The force was so violent that it sent the soft tissue of his brain slamming against the inside of his skull. So in less than a second, he has a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets.
And what's just terrifying is that looking at him right after it happened, people didn't realize he was dying. He was still standing.
That's the shock. The brain is this incredible machine that tries to protect you, tries to pretend everything is normal even when it's catastrophic. He was answering questions.
Right, the school nurse runs over.
Yeah, she asks him, what year is it? And he says, 1998, which was correct. But then she asks who the president is. He just looks at her completely dazed and says, Bill Clinton.
And of course, the president at the time was George W. Bush.
Exactly. He was slipping away. His brain was swelling at an incredible rate inside his skull. Within minutes, he couldn't swallow. Then he started having seizures.
And he stopped breathing on his own.
Stopped breathing on his own. By the time they airlifted him to a larger hospital, he was in a medically induced coma.
And that's what I mean by a fraction of a second. He goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, his entire reality is gone. He's not a baseball player anymore. He's a trauma patient.
The recovery was just agonizing. He lost his sense of smell permanently. At one point, he tried to blow his nose, and the air pressure actually forced his left eyeball out of the socket because the bone there was...
It was just odd.
It was just gone. It was just held in place by his eyelid and the optic nerve.
Oh, that is genuinely horrific.
It's brutal. He had double vision for weeks. He couldn't drive a car for almost a year. And for me, the really heartbreaking part is the baseball career. He finally gets back on the field a year later, but he's not the same player. He gets cut from the varsity team.
Humiliating for a high school kid.
Totally humiliated. He gets sent down to play with the sophomores a year behind him.
Yeah. So this is what you'd call rock bottom. And I think this is so crucial for you, the listener, to understand. Atomic Habits isn't a book about how to get rich quick or, become an influencer. It is born from this moment where Clear has to realize, okay, I cannot control the fact that I have brain damage. I cannot control that I lost my spot on the team. What is left? What can I actually control?
Exactly. It was a strategy born from desperation. When he eventually got to Denison University, he was just looking for a lifeline. He didn't set some grand goal like become a superstar athlete.
That was impossible at that point.
It was completely impossible. He just needed to survive the day. So he focused on the absolute tiniest things imaginable. Things like, is my room tidy? Did I go to bed at a reasonable hour?
It sounds almost pathetic when you put it like that. Like, my grand strategy for recovery is I clean my room.
It does. It sounds ridiculously small. But that is the entire atomic concept right there. It was the only thing he felt he could manage. But here's the thing. Keeping his room tidy gave him this tiny little hit of feeling in control.
And that feeling of control lowered his stress.
Right. Lower stress meant he slept a little better. Better sleep meant he could focus a bit more in class. It started to spiral upwards very, very slowly. He started lifting weights just a tiny bit, but consistently.
And the result wasn't some overnight miracle.
No, this took 4 years. But by the time he graduated, he wasn't just recovered. He was named the top male athlete at the entire university. He was an ESPN Academic All-American. He had, through these tiny, boring atomic habits, maximized every ounce of his genetic potential.
And that right there brings us to the core mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are not just talking about trying harder or being motivated. We are talking about the atomic nature of habits.
Right. And that word atomic, it has this beautiful double meaning that he points out. On one hand, it means tiny, like an atom, an incredibly small fundamental unit.
But on the other hand,
It means the source of immense power, atomic energy. Atomic habits are these tiny changes that, when you let them compound, produce these massive world-changing results.
so let's get into the mechanics of this. How do we actually go from, cleaning your room to world-class performance?
Clearly uses a case study that I think is just the gold standard for this concept. We have to talk about the British cycling team.
Dave Brailsford.
Right.
And the philosophy of marginal gains.
But we need to set the context here first, because I think people hear British cycling now and they just assume, oh, they're a powerhouse. But before 2003 they were? Well, they were a complete joke.
That is putting it mildly. For about 100 years, British cycling was the absolute laughingstock of the professional sport. Since 1908, they had won exactly 1 gold medal
One.
in a century.
One. It's unbelievable.
I read that at one point, a top European bike manufacturer actually refused to sell them equipment.
They did. They were genuinely afraid that if other professional riders saw the British team using their gear, it would actually hurt their sales. The thinking was, if the British are using it, it must be slow.
Wow. That's the level of mediocrity we're talking about.
It's a bottom of the barrel.
So in 2003, they hired Dave Brailsford. And usually, a new coach comes in and says, we need a revolutionary new training regimen. We need to work 100% harder.
But Brailsford didn't do that at all.
No, he had a completely different philosophy. He was looking for the 1%. His theory was what he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
Which sounds very technical.
It does, but the idea is stunningly simple. He reasoned that if you break down everything you can possibly think of that goes into riding a bike, and then just improve each of those things by 1%, you will get a significant, massive increase when you put them all back together.
Okay, but what does that actually look like in practice? Are we just talking about, slightly lighter bike frames or more ergonomic seats?
Well, that's the obvious stuff. And yes, of course, they redesigned the bike seats for more comfort. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for better grip. But Brailsford went way, way deeper. He started looking at things that most teams would say have nothing to do with cycling.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like pillows.
Pillows. Seriously. Pillows. He had the entire team bring their own personal pillows and mattresses to hotels when they traveled. The idea was to guarantee the exact same quality of sleep and the same posture every single night.
Okay, that's obsessive.
It gets better. He hired a surgeon to come in and teach the riders the proper, most effective way to wash their hands.
To avoid getting a cold.
Exactly. A simple cold means you miss 3 or 4 days of peak training. That's a marginal loss. If you wash your hands perfectly, you avoid that loss. It's a marginal gain. They even painted the inside of the team's mechanic truck stark white.
Why on earth would they do that? Aesthetics.
To spot dust.
You're kidding me.
Not at all. The theory was if you can see even the tiniest speck of dust on the white floor, you can clean it up. That dust would otherwise get into the highly tuned bike gears. Dust increases friction. Friction slows you down by a fraction of a second.
They were obsessing over dust motes while other teams were just, riding bikes. It sounds almost clinically obsessive.
It is. But that's the point. Look at the math. If you improve one thing by 1%, nobody notices. You don't feel it. But if you improve 100 different things by 1%, the compound effect is, well, it's nuclear.
And the results speak for themselves.
They really do. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, the British team went to the 2008 Beijing Olympics and completely dominated. They won 60% of the available gold medals in cycling.
It's a staggering turnaround.
Yeah.
From a laughingstock to world domination in 5 years.
And it wasn't a fluke. In London in 2012, they set 9 new Olympic records. They went from, please don't let people see you on our bikes, to, arguably the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport.
And this brings us right to the math that clear outlines of the book, the equation of 1%. Because I think we hear get 1% better, and we just think it's a nice slogan, but he literally maps it out.
Right, and this is where our intuition really fails us. We think in linear terms. We think, okay, if I get 1% better today, I'm 1% better. But it's not linear. It's exponential. It's compound interest for self-improvement.
So if you get 1% better each day for 1 year, you don't end up 365% better.
No, you end up 37 times better than where you started.
37 times. That is the difference between being a total novice and being a master at something.
But, and this is the big warning label on the bottle, it works in reverse too.
Yeah.
If you get 1% worse every day, you skip that workout, you eat that junk food, you miss that deadline, you don't just stay the same. You degrade. You slide almost all the way down to 0.
The problem, though, is that on a day-to-day basis, we don't feel 37 times better. You know, if I go to the gym today, I don't look any different in the mirror tonight.
That is the lagging measure problem. It's
Yeah.
a brilliant term. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. The results lag behind the actions that cause them.
And because of that lag, we quit.
We quit. We fall into what Clear calls the valley of disappointment.
I think the ice cube analogy he uses for this is
Yeah.
it's perfect. It explains why everyone gives up on their New Year's resolutions by February.
It's the best visualization in the entire book. So imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a freezing cold room. The room is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You start to slowly heat the room up. 26 degrees.
Nothing happens.
Nothing. 27. Still an ice cube. It's staring at you. 28. 29.
And you're doing the work, right? You're paying the heating bill. You're expending energy.
Exactly. You are putting in the effort. 30 degrees. 31. Still nothing. You are so tempted to say, this is pointless. This isn't working. But then you hit 32 degrees.
And the ice begins to melt.
The breakthrough happens.
Okay.
And to an outside observer who just walked in, it looks like an overnight success. They'd say, oh, 32 degrees is the magic number.
But it wasn't the magic number.
No. The melt wasn't caused by the jump from 31 to 32 degrees. It was the result of all the work that was done at 26, 27, 28. That energy wasn't wasted. It was being stored. That's what he calls the plateau of latent potential.
The work was stored. I find that so comforting. You have to burn through that stored energy before the change becomes visible.
Precisely.
Okay, so if we accept this foundational idea that small habits compound, the next logical question is, how do we set ourselves up to actually do them? Because normally we just set goals. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a book. But Clear basically takes a sledgehammer to the entire idea of goal setting.
He really does. He says, forget about goals. Focus on systems instead. And this is a really, really important distinction. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate for a second. Aren't goals necessary? I mean, if I don't have a goal, aren't I just aimless?
Yeah. So he'd say goals are good for setting a direction, but they're actually terrible for making progress. And he gives 4 very specific reasons why goals fail us. The first one is survivorship bias.
Which is what exactly?
It's our tendency to look at the winners, the Olympians, the billionaires, and we say, well, they had a goal to win, so therefore the goal must have caused the win. But we completely ignore the fact that every single loser in that competition also had the exact same goal.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Every single person in the Olympic final wants the gold medal.
Every Olympian, every job applicant wants the job. If the winners and the losers have the exact same goals, then the goal cannot possibly be the thing that differentiates them.
It's the system. It's the training, the diet, the sleep, the thousands of hours of practice.
Exactly. The second reason goals fail is that achieving a goal is only a momentary change. If your room is a mess and you have a goal to clean it, you summon the energy, you clean it, great. You have a clean room for, what, an hour? A day?
And then it gets messy again.
Because if you still have sloppy, messy habits, if you haven't changed the input, the room is just going to get messy again. You treated the symptom, not the underlying cause.
It's like yo-yo dieting. You starve yourself to hit a number on the scale, you celebrate, and then you go right back to eating the way you used to.
Which leads directly to the third problem. Goals restrict your happiness. They create this either conflict in your mind. I am a failure now, but I will be happy and successful when I lose those 20 pounds.
You're deferring your life until you hit the milestone.
You are, whereas a system allows you to feel good anytime the system is running. And finally, there's the yo-yo effect you mentioned. Once you cross the finish line of the goal, what's left to push you forward? That's why so many people stop training the day after they run the marathon. The goal is done.
So the mantra here is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
That's the one,
Okay.
precisely. And the deepest, most fundamental layer of the system is your identity. Clear talks about this onion model of change. Imagine an onion with 3 layers. The outer layer is your outcomes. That's what you get. I want to publish a book. The middle layer is your process. That's what you do. I will write 500 words every day. But the core, the very center of the onion, is your identity. That's what you believe about
This
yourself.
sounds a little bit like fake it till you make it.
It's much deeper than that. It's about collecting evidence. Imagine 2 people who are trying to stop smoking. Someone offers them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit."
Okay, sounds reasonable enough.
It does, but listen to the language. "I'm trying to quit." Their identity is still that of a smoker who is attempting to do something very difficult. They see themselves as a smoker who is making a sacrifice.
Right.
Now, the second person is offered a cigarette and says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker."
Oh, wow. That's a completely different statement. It's a shift in ownership.
It's a fundamental shift in identity. They aren't resisting temptation. They are simply acting in alignment with who they are. True, lasting behavior change is identity change. Your habits are how you embody that identity.
So every time you sit down and write a page, you're not just writing, you're being a writer.
Every time you practice the violin, you are being a musician. I love the phrase he uses. Every action is a vote.
Every action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. I love that.
Yes. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to win every single vote. You just need to win the majority of the votes to win the election of your new identity. The goal isn't to read a book. The goal is to become a reader.
That takes so much pressure off. If I miss a day at the gym, I haven't failed, I just missed 1 vote. I can cast another vote tomorrow. Okay, so we have the philosophy down. Let's get tactical. Clear breaks habit formation into 4 simple laws. And the first one seems almost too simple. Make it obvious.
It does sound simple, but it is deeply rooted in how our brains are wired to process information. The first law is all about the cue, the trigger. You have to understand that your brain is first and foremost a prediction machine. It is constantly scanning your environment, looking for patterns, looking for information that predicts a reward is coming.
Or a threat is coming.
Or a threat, yes. But for habits, it's mostly about rewards. It's looking for those patterns. Clara tells this incredible story about a paramedic. She's at a family barbecue, completely off duty, just relaxing. She happens to look over at her father-in-law, and she immediately says, "We need to go to the hospital. Right now."
Just from a glance.
Just from a glance. And her father-in-law is protesting. He's like, "I feel totally fine. What are you talking about?" But she insists. They get to the hospital, and it turns out he was in the middle of a massive blockage in a major artery. He was actively having a heart attack.
How did she know? Was she psychic?
It wasn't psychic at all. It was pattern recognition. After years and years of seeing heart attack patients, her brain had subconsciously learned to spot the cue. It was probably something imperceptible to most people, like the specific way blood was draining from his face, or a tiny change in the skin tone around his eyes. She couldn't have articulated what she saw, but her brain screamed, "Danger."
This is the automatic part of atomic habits. We run on these scripts we don't even know exist.
Exactly. And over time, these cues become completely invisible to our conscious mind, and that is incredibly dangerous. If you have a habit of eating a cookie every time you walk into the kitchen, you aren't consciously deciding to eat that cookie. You see the kitchen, that's the cue, and you instantly crave the sugar. The whole process happens before you've even had a chance to think about it.
So if we want to change our habits, good or bad, we have to stop running on autopilot. We have to unmask these invisible cues.
Right. We need to make the unconscious conscious. And Clear suggests a fantastic strategy he borrowed from the Japanese railway system called point and call.
Oh, I've seen videos of this. It looks like the train conductors are doing some kind of weird interpretive dance.
It looks very silly to an outsider, but it is deadly serious. In Tokyo, you'll see the train operators literally point at a signal and yell out loud, "Signal is green!" They'll point at the speedometer and shout, "Speed is 80 kilometers per hour."
But why? Why not just look at it? Why the pointing and the yelling?
Because just looking is a passive activity. You can look at a red light and your brain can still just glaze over it. But by pointing and speaking, you are engaging multiple senses. You're forcing your brain to consciously acknowledge the reality of the situation. It reduces errors on the railway by something like 85%.
So how do I use point and call in my own living room? Do I have to point the TV and start screaming at it?
In a way, yes. If you're trying to break a bad habit, you should verbalize it. Let's say you're trying to stop eating junk food. You walk into the kitchen and you find yourself reaching for a bag of chips. You should literally point at the bag and say out loud, I am about to eat these chips. They are full of salt and fat. This will not help me reach my goal of being healthier.
That kills the mood immediately.
That's the whole point. You are yanking the habit out of the subconscious autopilot part of your brain, the basal ganglia, and forcing it into your prefrontal cortex, the part that makes rational, long-term decisions. It is really hard to mindlessly eat the chips when you've just announced to the entire room that it's a bad idea.
I love that. It's about creating a moment of awareness. But let's talk about building new habits, because making it obvious isn't just about yelling at cookies. It's also about planning.
This is where we get into implementation intentions. This is one of the most robust, well-documented findings in all of psychology. So many of us think we lack motivation, but what we actually lack is clarity.
I want to work out more is not a plan.
I want to work out more is a wish. It's a vague desire. A plan is a sentence that follows this formula. I will behavior at time and location.
And the stats on this are pretty wild, right? It makes a huge difference.
The monumental difference. They did this great study on people trying to build an exercise habit. They split them into 3 groups. The first group was just the control group. They were just asked to track how often they exercise. The second group was the motivation group. They had to read a bunch of material about the benefits of heart health.
The rah-rah group, get them all fired up.
Exactly. And that motivation group had almost the exact same success rate as the control group, around 35%. Motivation, on its own, did basically nothing. But the third group,
What did they do?
they were simply asked to write down one specific sentence. During the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day, at time, and place.
And the result?
91% of them exercised. It nearly tripled the success rate.
That is insane. Just from writing down the time and the place. How does that work?
Because you completely remove decision fatigue from the equation. When 5:00 p.m. on Tuesday rolls around, you don't have to have an internal debate. Do I feel like working out? When should I go? Where should I go? The decision was already made days ago. The time and place become the cue.
And you can build on this, right? You can stack habits together.
Yes. This leverages a psychological principle called the Diderot effect. Diderot was this French philosopher who, the story goes, bought a beautiful new scarlet robe. But when he brought it home, he realized his old rug looked cheap and shabby compared to the robe, so he bought a new rug. But then his chair looked bad next to the new rug.
I know this feeling, I just bought a new couch, so now I need to repaint the entire living room effect.
That's the one. One behavior triggers a cascade of other behaviors. So habit stacking says you should use this to your advantage. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit. You use the momentum of an old established habit to pull the new one along for the ride.
After I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Perfect. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately put on my running shoes. You are essentially grafting the new fragile habit onto a neural pathway that is already strong and well established.
Now, there's one more massive piece of this make it obvious law, and that's environment design. You could argue this is the most powerful lever we have available to us.
It is, without a doubt. And the best, most shocking proof of this comes from the Vietnam War. In the 1970s, the U.S. government was in a full-blown panic because reports were coming out that 20% of American soldiers stationed in Vietnam were addicted to heroin.
20%, that is a massive number.
It's an epidemic. They were terrified that when the war finally ended, they'd have hundreds of thousands of heroin addicts roaming the streets of America. But then they did a follow-up study that shocked everyone. When the soldiers came home,
What happened?
90% of them stopped using heroin spontaneously. Just like that. No rehab, no agonizing withdrawal. They just stopped.
That flies in the face of everything we're told about addiction. We're told once an addict, always an addict.
Right. But it proves that addiction is heavily, heavily tied to context and environment. In Vietnam, the cues for heroin use were everywhere. The incredible stress of war, the easy availability of the drug, the fact that your friends were doing it. The environment was the trigger. When they came back to their quiet suburban homes, all those cues were gone.
So, we like to think we have incredible self-control, but maybe the most disciplined people just aren't being tempted as often.
That's exactly it. Disciplined people are often just better at structuring their lives and designing their environments so they don't need heroic willpower. They spend less time in tempting situations to begin with.
So practically speaking, if I want to eat more apples, I shouldn't hide them away in the crisper drawer in the fridge.
No. Put them in a big, beautiful bowl right on the kitchen counter. Make them obvious. And if you want to stop mindlessly checking your phone all day, don't leave it on your desk next to you. Put it in another room. Make the cue invisible.
Claire also mentions the one space, one use rule. I feel like this is huge for anyone who works from home these days.
It's absolutely critical. If you regularly work from your bed, your brain starts to associate the bed with email, stress, and deadlines, not with sleep. Then you lie there at night wondering why you have insomnia. You have to partition your life. This chair is for reading. This desk is for working. This couch is for relaxing. This bed is for sleeping. Do not mix the contexts.
Okay, that's a perfect summary of the first law. Make it obvious. Now let's move on to the second law. Make it attractive. This is all about the craving.
Right, and this gets into the nitty-gritty of the neuroscience of dopamine. For a very long time, scientists thought dopamine was the pleasure chemical. You eat a donut, your brain releases dopamine, you feel good. Simple.
That's still a common understanding, I think.
It is, but it turns out it's wrong, or at least it's incomplete. Dopamine is actually the chemical of desire and anticipation. They did these experiments where they measured the dopamine levels in monkeys. The big spike in dopamine didn't happen when the monkeys got the reward of fruit juice. It happened when they saw the little light that signaled the juice was coming.
Ah, so it's the anticipation of the reward that actually drives our behavior.
Yes, it's the wanting, not the liking. That's why you can scroll through Instagram for an hour, not really enjoying any of it, but still feeling this compulsive urge to keep scrolling. Your brain is hunting for the next potential reward.
So we need to find a way to hack that dopamine spike for our good habits.
We can do that by using what are called supernormal stimuli. There's this classic experiment in nature with herring gulls. The mother gull has a little red dot on her beak, and the chicks peck at the dot to signal they want food. Scientists came along and created a fake beak that was just a stick with 3 giant red dots painted on it.
And the chicks preferred the fake stick.
They went absolutely crazy for it. They completely ignored their own parents and their real beaks to peck furiously at the stick. It was a supernormal stimulus. It was, in a sense, more real than real.
And modern junk food is the human equivalent of the stick with 3 red dots.
It's the perfect analogy. It is scientifically engineered with the precise ratio of salt, sugar, and fat to hit what food scientists call the bliss point. It hijacks and overrides our normal evolutionary brakes.
So how do we make good habits supernormal? Or at least, how do we make them more attractive? Because let's be honest, broccoli is never going to be as exciting as the donut.
One of the best strategies is called temptation bundling. You pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do. There was this great story about an engineering student in Ireland named Ronan Byrne. He loved watching Netflix, but he knew he needed to exercise more. So, being an engineer, he hacked his stationary bike.
What did he do?
He wrote a program that connected his bike to his laptop. Netflix would only play on his laptop if he was cycling above a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show would pause.
That is absolutely genius. I really want to see what happens in the next episode of Stranger Things, so I have to keep pedaling.
Exactly. He bundled the temptation, which was Netflix, with the habit he needed to build, which was exercise. The formula is, after the habit I already do, I will the habit I need. After the habit I need, I will the habit I want.
And social norms play a huge role in attractiveness too, right? The power of the tribe.
It's massive. We are fundamentally herd animals. We have an innate desire to fit in, and we tend to imitate 3 groups in particular. The closers, our family and friends, the many, the crowd, and the powerful, those with high status. So if you want to build a new habit, the easiest way is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior.
Like the story of the Polgar sisters. This is a fascinating story of what you might call manufactured genius.
Laszlo Polgar was an educational psychologist who had this radical belief that geniuses are made, not born. And he decided to test this theory on his own children. He decided he would raise his 3 daughters to be chess prodigies.
Wow.
Their entire house was filled with chess books. The walls had pictures of famous chess matches. They played chess constantly.
That sounds incredibly intense. Did they end up hating it?
That's the surprising part. They loved it. Because to them, it wasn't some strange, punishing chore. It was just what everyone they knew and loved did. It was their family culture. If you join a running club, going for a run isn't something you have to force yourself to do. It's just what you and your friends do on Tuesday nights. The shared identity carries you along.
And we can flip this for bad habits, right?
Yeah.
We can make them unattractive.
Yes. A lot of it is about reframing your mindset. You change the language from I have to I get to. Not, ooh, I have to go cook dinner, but I get to cook a healthy meal for my family because I'm fortunate enough to have food in a kitchen. It actually shifts the chemistry in your brain.
And you can reframe the bad habit itself.
You can. Look at Alan Carr's famous method for quitting smoking. It's basically an exercise in making the habit unattractive. He forces you to see that cigarettes don't actually relieve your stress. They create the nicotine withdrawal pangs that the next cigarette then temporarily relieves. You realize you aren't giving up a crutch, you're finally removing a chain.
Okay, moving on to the third law. Make it easy. This one focuses on the response, the action itself.
And this is where we see probably the single biggest mistake that people make. We consistently confuse motion with action.
Explain that distinction for us.
Motion is planning. It's researching the best diet plan online for hours. It's buying a new pair of running shoes. It's making a color-coded spreadsheet for your workout schedule. Action is actually eating the salad. Action is actually going for the run.
But motion feels so productive, it feels like work.
That's the trap. Motion makes you feel like you're making progress, but it carries zero risk of failure. You can't fail at researching a novel. You can only fail at actually writing a novel. So we use motion as a form of procrastination to avoid the possibility of failure. But to truly master a habit, you need repetition, not perfection.
There's that great story from the book about the photography class that illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, yeah. A photography professor at the University of Florida split his class into two groups on the first day. The quantity group was told, you will be graded solely on the number of photos you submit. 100 photos gets you an A, 90 photos gets you a B, and so on.
So it didn't matter if they were good photos, just click the shutter 100 times.
Basically. The quality group, on the other hand, was told, you only need to produce one single photo all semester. But to get an A, it has to be a nearly perfect image. Your entire grade depends on the excellence of that one shot.
So logically, you would think the quality group would produce the better photos at the end, right? They spent the whole semester refining one perfect image.
That's what you'd think. But at the end of the term, all the best photos came from the quantity group.
How is that possible?
Because while the quality group was sitting around theorizing about what makes a perfect photo, getting paralyzed by perfectionism, the quantity group was out there taking hundreds of bad photos. They were experimenting with lighting and composition. They were failing over and over. They were learning by doing. They simply got their reps in.
So quantity eventually leads to quality. But our brains are lazy, right? We don't want to do all those reps.
We are wired to be energy conservers. It's the law of least effort. Our brains are designed to gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. The reason you scroll on your phone for an hour is because it is easy. The reason you don't go to the gym is because it requires effort to get your clothes, get in the car, and drive there. So the key is to reduce the friction for your good habits.
This is where the Japanese manufacturing concept of lean production comes in.
Exactly. In the 70s and 80s, Japanese factories absolutely crushed their American counterparts because they were obsessed with relentlessly removing waste and friction from their processes. We need to apply that same thinking to our own lives. If you want to draw more, have your pencil sharpened and your sketchbook sitting open on your desk, not buried in a drawer somewhere.
If you want to work out in the morning, lay out your gym clothes the night before.
That's a classic for a reason. You're reducing the number of steps between you and the good behavior.
And the 2-minute rule is a huge part of making it easy. But I have to be honest, this one always sounded a little bit gimmicky to me.
How so?
Well, the rule is that a new habit should take less than 2 minutes to do. But if my goal is to run a marathon, going for a 2-minute run feels completely pointless. Like, why even bother?
I get that. It feels like you're cheating or something.
Yeah.
But you have to shift your perspective. The point of the 2-minute run isn't to get fit. The point is to master the art of showing up. You cannot improve a habit that doesn't exist yet.
So the initial goal isn't run a marathon. It's become the type of person who puts on their running shoes every day.
Precisely. Read before bed every night becomes read one page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. The goal is to automate the first 2 minutes, because once you've started, it's so much easier to continue. The hardest part of going to the gym is just getting to the gym. Once you're actually there, you might as well stay for a workout. The 2-minute rule is all about overcoming that initial inertia.
And on the flip side, we can make bad habits more difficult. We can use what he calls a commitment device.
Like Victor Hugo, this is a classic story. He was procrastinating on writing The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He was partying, hosting guests, anything but writing. His publisher was furious and gave him a hard deadline.
So what did he do?
He did something extreme. He gathered up all of his nice clothes, his suits, his jackets, all his outdoor wear, and he had his assistant lock them away in a large chest.
And he gave the key away.
He gave the key to his assistant with strict orders not to give it back until the book was finished. He was left with nothing to wear but a large, ugly, gray shawl. He literally could not leave the house. He couldn't host guests. He had no choice but to sit down and write.
That is extreme. But it worked. He finished the book with weeks to spare.
He did. We can do the same thing with technology. We don't need to lock up our clothes, but we can use digital shawls. Use a website blocker like Freedom to cut off distracting sites. Put an outlet timer on your Wi-Fi router to cut your internet access at 10 p.m. every night.
Or the John Henry Patterson example with the cash register.
Right. Patterson owned a general store in the 1800s, and his employees were stealing from him constantly. He couldn't watch them every second. So he bought one of these newfangled inventions called a cash register. It locked the cash away and made a loud choshing sound every time it was opened.
He automated ethical behavior.
Theft dropped to 0 overnight. He made the bad behavior nearly impossible to do. We need to look at our own lives and ask, where can I install a cash register? How can I add friction to my bad habits?
Okay, so we're 3 laws in. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy. The final law is the 4th law. Make it satisfying. And this is all about the reward.
This brings us to what Clear calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
But that's the fundamental problem, isn't it? Good habits often have delayed rewards, and bad habits have immediate rewards.
That is the tragedy of the human condition right there. We live in what scientists call a delayed return environment. You go to the gym today, you don't get fit today. You save money today, you aren't rich tomorrow. But our brain evolved for an immediate return environment. The African savanna.
Eat the berry now, survive now, run from the lion now.
Exactly. Our brains are hardwired to value the present moment far more than the future. Smoking a cigarette gives you a nicotine hit now. The fact that it might kill you in 20 years is too abstract for your caveman brain to care about. It always chooses the now.
So, to stick with a good habit, we have to find a way to trick our caveman brains. We need to add a little bit of immediate pleasure to the process.
Right. Take the Karachi soap study. This was in Pakistan. Public health workers wanted to reduce the spread of disease, and they knew that widespread hand washing was the answer. But people just wouldn't do it consistently. Explaining germ theory didn't work because the benefit, not getting sick, is invisible and delayed.
So what did they do?
They partnered with a soap company to create a premium soap. It smelled amazing. It lathered up really well. It was a genuinely pleasant sensory experience to use it.
So washing your hands stopped being a chore and started being a little treat.
Exactly. The reward became immediate. This feels good and smells good on my hands. The long-term health benefits were just a nice bonus. You have to find a way to make the hard thing feel good right now.
The invention of mint toothpaste is another great example of this, right?
It's the perfect example. Toothpaste originally tasted terrible. It wasn't until manufacturers like Pepsi added mint and that foaming agent sodium lauryl sulfate that it became a daily habit for millions.
Because the mint doesn't actually clean your teeth.
Not at all. The foam doesn't clean your teeth either. But that cool, tingly feeling gives your brain an immediate signal of success. It tells your brain, job done, your mouth is clean. It's a manufactured but very effective reward.
Another great tool for creating satisfaction is habit tracking. Just the simple act of visualizing your progress.
The paperclip strategy is my absolute favorite example of this. Trent Deersmid was a rookie stockbroker, and every morning he would place 2 jars on his desk. One was filled with 120 paperclips. The other was empty.
And every single time he made a sales call,
he would physically move 1 paperclip from the full jar to the empty jar. And he wouldn't stop making calls until the first jar was empty. It's visual, it's tactile, and it's incredibly satisfying. There is a deep, primal satisfaction in seeing that pile of work move from the to-do pile to the done pile.
it gamifies the process. And the comedian Jerry Seinfeld uses the calendar method, the don't break the chain strategy.
He gets a big wall calendar, and every day that he writes new jokes, he puts a big red X over that day. After a few days, you have a chain. And your goal isn't just to write jokes anymore. It's to not break the chain. You don't want to see that gap in the visual streak. But we have to talk about what happens when you inevitably do break the chain, because you will. Life happens.
And the rule for that is simple. Never miss twice.
Exactly. Missing once is an accident. It happens to everyone. Missing twice is the beginning of a new bad habit. If you miss a workout on Monday, don't spiral. Don't say, well, I ate a pizza for lunch, so the whole week is ruined. I might as well eat 5 more.
That's the classic what the hell effect.
Just get back on track with the very next workout. Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. It's about the math of compounding. Preventing a 33% loss is just as valuable as achieving a 50% gain. Just get back on the horse immediately.
That's such a healthy, forgiving way to look at it. It stops that shame spiral before it starts. Now, in the final section of the book, Clear goes into what he calls advanced tactics, because eventually, with enough practice, habits become easy. And when they become easy, they can become boring. Or worse, we stop improving.
This brings us to the truth about talent and genes. And Clear has this amazing comparison between Michael Phelps, the swimmer, and Hicham El Guerrouj, the middle distance runner.
2 absolute legends in their respective sports.
But physically, they are freaks of nature in completely opposite directions. Phelps is 6'4", El Guerrouj is 5'9". But here is the absolutely crazy stat. They were the exact same length inseam on their pants.
Wait, how is that even possible?
Phelps has an incredibly long torso and relatively short legs for his height. He's built like a canoe, perfect for swimming. El Guerrouj is the opposite. He's all long legs and has a very short torso.
So if you made them switch sports,
they would be completely mediocre. Phelps would be a terrible runner. He's too top-heavy. El Guerrouj would be a terrible swimmer. He'd sink. The lesson is that your genes matter. They don't determine your destiny, but they do clarify where your hard work is most likely to pay off. You want to play a game where the odds are in your favor.
and if you can't find a game like that,
You create one. Look at Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip. He says he's not the world's best artist. There are millions better. He's not the world's funniest comedian, but he's better than most people at drawing, and he's funnier than most people, and he has a deep background in corporate business. You combine those 3 things, and he is the best in the world at making funny cartoons about business.
that's the explore-exploit trade-off. You try a lot of things until you find your unique niche, and then you exploit it relentlessly. But once you find it, how do you stay motivated? Because doing the same thing every single day gets dull.
This is the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when we are working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. Not too easy, not too hard. The challenge should be roughly 4% beyond your current skill level.
The flow state.
Exactly. If it's too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you get anxious and give up. You need to find that sweet spot of manageable difficulty. But even in flow, eventually you get bored of the process. And this is the elite coach's insight. Claire asked a top Olympic coach, what's the real difference between the best athletes in the world and everyone else?
And you'd expect the answer to be something like genetics or raw talent.
But the coach said, at some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day and doing the same lifts over and over and over again.
That hits hard. We have this romantic idea that it's all about passion. We think the best athletes are just fired up and motivated every single day.
They're not. They get bored too. But the professional sticks to the schedule, even when they're bored. The amateur lets life get in the way. Stepping up when it's annoying or painful or just plain draining, that's what makes all the difference.
But there is a hidden downside to good habits. When a habit becomes truly automatic, we stop paying attention. And when we stop paying attention, we stop improving.
We get complacent. We think, I already know how to drive, so we stop checking our mirrors as carefully. We think, I know how to code, so we stop learning new syntax and better practices.
So the formula for true mastery isn't just habits.
No, the formula is habits plus deliberate practice, mastery. You need to have a system of reflection and review. The LA Lakers, under coach Pat Riley, used a program called Career Best Effort, or CBE. They tracked everything. Not just points and rebounds, but unsung hero deeds. Diving for a loose ball, setting a good screen, They asked every player to improve their output by just 1% over their own personal average.
He brings it all right back to the 1%.
Always. It's about that constant cycle of action and reflection. You need to look at your habits periodically to make sure you aren't just mindlessly repeating your errors.
Oh, we've covered a massive amount of ground here today. Let's try to bring it all home. We have the 4 laws of behavior change.
Number 1, make it obvious.
Make it attractive.
Make it easy. And number 4, make it satisfying.
And if you're trying to break a bad habit, you just invert them.
You invert every single one. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. And make it unsatisfying.
It's such a robust and elegant framework. It really takes the mystery and the morality out of behavior change. It's just a system.
It is. And I think the final, most provocative thought to leave you with is this. Success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It is a system to improve, an endless process of refinement. We often ask, how long will it take to build this habit? But the real answer is, it takes forever.
Because the moment you stop doing it, it's no longer a habit.
Exactly. It has to be a lifestyle, not a destination.
Small habits don't just add up, they compound. And ultimately, the most important question isn't what do you want to achieve? It's, are you becoming the type of person you want to become?
That's the ultimate metric right there.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive into atomic habits. Go make something 1% better today. We'll see you next time.
Take it.